Kirsten Rogoff, who is a marriage and family counselor here in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. You really should be a comedian. Just put some laugh tracks in here and it'll be all set.
Well, that bit with the lube, that was inspiredly crazy. Wow, I could talk to you for hours, but we have to get to a point. And I know that one of the topics we said we would discuss tonight are two that are in the news a lot: sexual addiction, and something that I just heard recently through you, the concept of sexual anorexia. So in your, I know neither of them are in the diagnostic and statistical manual, but do you think sex addiction is a real thing?
Oh, definitely, yes. I mean, the fact that it's not in the DSM-4, they're trying to get it in the DSM-4. There's just some problems doing that. I'm not sure what's holding it up, but it seems to be an ongoing war. But every psychiatrist that I know, every psychologist, every marriage and family therapist that works in this field who has any experience with this does realize there is a sex addiction.
So I do want to talk to you about this specifically because when I was in nursing school, of course, we learned about addiction as a chemical dependency on a substance. And so when I talk to people, I can say there's sex compulsion, there is a misuse of sexuality, certainly there is avoidance, I call it all kinds of things. But when I think of an addiction, if I don't get my fix, I will fall on the floor, I'll go into convulsions, I'll puke, I'll have shivers, or I'll even die. And as uncomfortable as someone who has a sexual compulsion might be, if he or she does not get his or her desired fix, they're not going to die or become physically ill. So for me, granted I haven't been in school for 25 years, I personally quibble with addiction as the label, even though it does disrupt people's lives. It follows other things that we know is an addiction. It disrupts your life, disrupts your work, disrupts your married life, but you're not gonna die. So how, in your experience then, how is it an addiction?
Well, I would argue that there isn't a chemical addiction to sex. It is adrenaline high. If you wouldn't argue that there would be a gambling addiction, for example, although there's no drugs involved. If you watch a gambler looking up at the little screen with the horses running around up there and you see their jugular going and their eyes are glazing over, they're high. And so I really do see the same phenomena going on with people that are on a food binge. They want to go on a food binge, they go into a supermarket, they're excited already. What am I going to eat? What am I going to binge on? It's really no different. The food and sex addictions are very, very close. So
I know that the gambling spot of the brain is very close to the cocaine spot of the brain in terms of what gets lit up. A friend of mine.
I haven't been looking at any brains lately, so I don't know what lights. I mean, I'm lucky mine is lighting up lately.
A friend of mine was a professional gambler, and he saw another friend's girlfriend who was recently sober, and they were down at the blackjack table, and my friend saw the girlfriend and said to her boyfriend, "I've seen that, careful, buddy." Because he could see her eyes starting to like, oh, this is fun, this is easy, this is great. And
when a sex addict starts going into that mode that you're talking about, they call it being in the bubble. They really they get lost.
So they lose time, lose money, lose. You
can see it going on. I mean, you can see their eyes just glaze right over.
So how is sexual anorexia? When I think of sexual anorexia, I would think of someone who denies themselves all physical pleasure. They may be obsessed with it mentally, but they will not have it. But I don't know if that's even so because I've just heard the term today. So what is sexual anorexia when you use it?
Well, it's also not in the DSM-4, and I think there's only one book that I know of by Patrick Carnes out on the market about this subject. The way I see it, I use sexual anorexia the way they use the word anorexia in terms of food. Anorexia in itself means lack of appetite, no appetite. Now, you could have lack of appetite because your liver is shot, because you had the flu, because you're excited about something.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why. So then they use the word anorexia nervosa. It shows a mental issue going on. Or bulimorexia, which shows a different process going on. Sexual anorexia is, I would say, the same thing. It is a denial of, quote unquote, I hate using the word normal. Normal is a cycle on the washing machine. Average sexual experience. because I'm not even going to go into the whole normal average sexual experience. So for someone who has sexual anorexia, they could alternate between sexual addiction and sexual anorexia. So it would look like this. They'd go on a binge purge cycle.
Okay.
We're going to be sex addicts for weeks and weeks and weeks. Something happens and
I crash and
I crash and I'm going to swear off of it.
I'm never going to do it again.
It's too painful for me. Part two is this. There is no such thing as having just one addiction. When you're looking at a sex addict, you're looking at more than one addiction almost always. They may not know that they have more than one, but there's usually one with that. They'd be smoking cigarettes and looking at porn and so on and so forth. Now with a sexual anorectic, they may stop drinking and stop smoking and stop doing a lot of things, and as a result, not be interested in sex anymore.
Yes, I do know some people that they don't drink unless they're smoking, or they don't smoke unless they're drinking.
It's the same idea. And the other part to this is that there are people that have avoidant and schizoid personalities and are terrified of being with real human beings. And so they would be more interested in cyber sex. They would
Sure.
be more interested in just masturbation in general, but you would call that sexual anorexia too, because they're denying themselves healthy sexual expression, at least healthy in terms of what we would, on the average, call
Right.
healthy.